Bit out of the ordinary, eh? Throw another log on the fire here. See who might be joining us at the campfire, eh? So this is the live where you get to watch the campfire and join in the conversation around the campfire. Got 2 people on. We've got a live stream, eh? So I haven't streamed this late, but I was gonna do a live stream this afternoon in the shop forging something, and didn't happen. Life got in the way, but that's what happens. Hey, we've got 5 people on here. Hey Micah, how's it going? So I thought I would bring you guys along here, just enjoying the campfire outside, and we'll talk about knives or whatever else you want to talk about. Pretty much anything. Pretty much anything. So I've got some nice pecan wood on the fire here. Jesus Cristo, how's it going? And I've got a piece on there that's a little green. You can hear it hissing. Maybe you can't hear it hissing, but I can hear it hissing. But it'll be okay. So you guys get to enjoy the campfire, at least in the video there, and we'll have a little conversation, have a little chat. Got some nice chili that I cooked up here. So if you want to hear my chili recipe, it's not real chili. It's just kind of it's almost like a beef and bean stew. But if you guys want to hear the recipe, I'll relay that to you. But it's pretty tasty, pretty good. So this live stream is a little out of the ordinary, because typically I'm forging something, excuse me, in the shop, forging something, and like I said a minute ago, I was going to do that. I was planning on doing that this afternoon, couldn't make it happen, but I thought, since I'm out here enjoying the campfire, bring you guys along and talk about knives or whatever. So I guess I'm partially depending on the chat to provide some inspiration for content here. So I brought the campfire. I was hoping y'all would bring some conversation, so we'll see what happens here. So we got 14 people in the chat here. The last couple Friday live streams have been, I don't know, not slim, but not super big here. Okay, I had to switch my chat once again to all messages. So we've got Infinitesimo, you, what's up? And then Deepex. Where's this live from? He's in Brazil. I'm in the great state of Texas, which on that subject, it's surprising how close how similar the Texas flag looks to the Brazilian flag. I guess it's just a matter of coincidence, or maybe the era in which both flags were created. But if you look them up, the Texas flag and the Brazilian flag look very similar. And I don't think that was on purpose. It's just, like I said, I think it's just because of the similar era in which they were created. Okay. Machete, thanks, appreciate it. Mike is always down for a new chili recipe. Well, so this chili recipe is suspiciously lacking chilies specifically. It does have some jalapenos, but I'll just let you guys know what I'm munching on here. And this smoke is kind of blowing in my face a little bit, so I'm blowing my nose a little bit here. So I apologize for that. So these beans here, start with just some nice. I'm gonna forget what they are. They're a very basic bean. Wow, I'm drawing a blank here. Anyway, I'll think of it later. They're beans, and I soak them for a whole day overnight, and then I end up simmering them for about a whole day. Once they start getting soft, I forgot to mention I soak them in salt water. So start with a sizable pot and put about 5 cups of beans in, and then about 1/8 a cup of salt, and add enough water to double the level of the beans. And then, like I say, soak them overnight, and then the next morning I'll start, mid-morning I'll start simmering them, and they'll cook for most of the day. Once they start getting real close to being done, what I've been doing lately is I'll add diced up brisket, and it's not a whole brisket by any stretch, but I think it's probably, let's say, 3 inches by 4 inches by 8 inches, so a pretty good chunk of beef there, and it's got all that fat and stuff in it. Pinto beans, that's what I'm working with here. Couldn't remember that for a minute. Anyway, so I'll dice up that brisket and put that in there. And brisket is I don't know the proper way to cook brisket. But you got to cook it low and slow for a long time, no matter how you do it, or it'll be tough and chewy. And in this case, it ends up getting boiled or simmered for a couple hours at least. And so at that point, it's pretty palatable. So anyway, the beans have been cooking most of the day, and then you'll put that diced up brisket in there. I'm talking about 3/8 at most, 1/2 inch cube, and that'll get simmered for a couple hours with the beans. When I put the beans on to simmer, though, I will add some black pepper, some paprika, a little bit of cayenne pepper, a little bit of oregano, and I'll probably end up adding more of all of those later, but let the beans simmer in that for a while, for most of the day. And then for the last hour, I'll add, probably 5 to 6 medium-sized jalapeno peppers sliced up, a couple bell peppers. You can add some like poblanos or Anaheims, whatever. And then 4 to 6 medium-sized to small onions. Dice those up, and those will all cook in there for the last hour or so. And then you gotta watch the salt too, because it usually always needs more salt, but you don't want to overdo it. So you kind of taste test it as you go, and then towards the end you kind of dial in on how much salt you need. And that's how I do it. So there's no set recipe really. It's just kind of a by feel, and that's how I do it. I'm not saying I'm doing it right. I'm just saying that's how I do it. So that's what I'm eating right now. So how's everybody doing out there? Friday night. Hope everybody's having a good night. Hope the week was productive for you. It was pretty productive for me. I never get quite as much as I want to get done, But I did get some significant stuff knocked down on some custom orders, and then, you know, a number of things for the shop, so wasn't too bad overall. See if you guys can hear the fire here. Put the mic down there. Now if you can hear that kind of hissing a little bit, I've got a piece on there that's not quite cured, not quite dry. But that's the way it goes. Well, like I said in the beginning here, I'm kind of depending on the chat here to drive this live stream here. Like I said, I've got the Campfire, counting on you guys to bring the topics a little bit, you know, drive the conversation a little bit here. So throw out your questions, bladesmithing, general, philosophical. You know, it's that kind of a night, Friday night around the campfire. You know, a little bit of philosophical, whatever. So throw some stuff out there, guys, and we'll roll with it. Assuming the chat hasn't frozen up here. I'm concerned that may have happened here. So I think it did, because I switched to top messages and I got some new messages here. So I don't know. YouTube chat on the lives is so goofy. Jeez. All right, so we got some more here. Whitewood, you think about Chile? Their flag is similar to Texas. Yes, I was just saying that. Yes, sir. Mike Davenport, doing pretty well. Relaxing at work. Waiting for raffle season to open tomorrow morning. Yes, sir. Gotta love that. Mike Davenport, welcome to Fire Creek Forge Extra. Yes, sir. Looking forward to Whitewoods. Excuse me, that smoke is going right at me. No, go the other way. Finished results for the chef set. Yes, sir. Yeah, it's going pretty good. I gotta finish grind it this next week here, but everything looks to be going pretty good. That's a custom order, and yeah, it's I did the Damascus on that last week. That's the billets that I was wrapping in stainless steel. Anyway, I got through it. You know, it wasn't the best Damascus forge welding ever. But I guess that's what happens when you try new stuff and you don't always get the exact results you want here. But anyway, Alex Jones, what up? You got some more new whale facts. Bowhead whales can live for over 200 years. I did not know that, and I didn't know that there was a bowhead whale. I probably heard of that, but that's cool. Whales. Got to count on Alex Jones for whale facts. That's right on, man. Skull Creek Farm. Can I make a forge using natural gas? Yes. You're going to have to use a smaller, or is it larger? I don't remember. You're going to have to use a different size, what's the word? Whatever the gas is coming out of, it's a different size, I guess, than what you would use for propane. And I don't know if it's larger or smaller. I just know that it's different. But yes, you should be able to use natural gas just fine. You just have to get the right the right burner setup for it. And I don't know what that is, but I'm sure you can figure that out on the Google or something like that. Excuse me. Alex Jones, philosophical, what's better, bourbon or scotch? Man, I don't know the difference enough to say. Sorry. I'm not your guy for that, but I'd try either. So, and if you handed me a shot of either, I'd tell you which one I like better, but I can't tell you that beyond that. So, Skull Creek Farm, also appreciate your work. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. We'll go back to all messages to see if YouTube is messing with us here. Yeah, the knife I was gonna forge on today's live stream in the shop was gonna be well, I guess you could almost call it a pre-bowie knife. I was gonna title it the real Bowie knife, and it's the knife that the Bowie brothers, both James and Reason Bowie, had made for themselves before the Bowie knife was popular. Because when everybody thinks of a Bowie knife, they think of a big clip point blade with a guard, and I guess that's correct, but you have to appreciate the fact that the Bowie knife underwent some kind of evolution, and the early versions of that did not have a guard and did not have that wide, deep clip point blade that the classic Bowie knife has. I mean, honestly, you'd be surprised what passed or what was labeled as a Bowie knife back in the day, because a Bowie knife became literally a marketing moniker, basically. Companies and individual makers and stuff would label their stuff as a Bowie knife simply to sell it, and so you'd be surprised what passed as a Bowie knife or what was labeled as a Bowie knife. So it's a pretty interesting story. And I really am not super well versed in it. I've kind of glossed over the subject a little bit, only enough to know that, the accepted Bowie knife design of today is not what originally would have been considered the Bowie knife. But, when did they start calling it a Bowie knife? It's kind of an interesting thing. But I digress. Excuse me. Skull Creek Farm, have you ever used Purple Heart wood as a handle material? If so, any warnings or advice? Yes, I have on multiple occasions, and I don't have any special warnings or advice. It's a nice hardwood. It's not as hard as desert ironwood, and it's still pretty hard, but it's not like the hardest. It's pretty workable. Talking about it now, the only thing I would say is, as with many other hardwoods, you do have to be careful that you don't burn it when you're sanding or grinding it on your grinder. If you're sanding by hand, then this is not an issue. But if you're using the grinding belt, you do have to be careful that you don't burn it, overheat it, because like ironwood or cocobolo or some of these other woods, you can scorch it or burn it on the grinder, and that discolors it and just messes it. That's the only thing that I would say is you have to be careful with. Other than that, yeah, it's a nice hardwood. It's got that distinctive purple color to it. So got the smoke blowing into my eyes again here. Yeah, I just did a knife a month or two ago with Purple Heart. So yeah, that's the only thing I would say is just be careful on the grinder. You don't scorch it, burn it. And the same is true probably for if you go to buff it. You just gotta be careful with that. Yeah, smoke in the face will Got the old sinuses going here. But what are you gonna do, right? All right, Alex Jones. What is the most essential Thanksgiving side? You know, it just comes right to the top of my head. That would have to be stuffing, okay? Because that's what goes in the turkey. Stuffing not only goes in the turkey, it is a standalone dish if you're doing it right. And so I would have to say stuffing. That's got to be the most essential side. What would be a close number 2? Which you didn't ask, but I'm going to answer it because I'm thinking about it. I would have to say the close number 2 would be mashed potatoes. And I'll be generous and give you the choice between, you know, regular mashed potatoes and like your yams or sweet potatoes. But I would have to say that's your most important second Thanksgiving side after stuffing. But what do you guys think? Because that's what I think. Micah Davenport. His grandfather had some guitars, wonderful sounding guitars from Purple Heart. Yeah, that would be cool. It's cool to think about how different woods from different trees and stuff have different resonating qualities. And I really don't know the difference between this or that when it comes to sound quality, but I can just imagine that would be kind of cool. Let's see here. Yeah, YouTube chat on the lives is kind of retarded, so I'm switching back and forth between top messages and all messages, and then I get more messages, so I don't know. More smoke in the eyes. It's not supposed to happen. Dude. You know, the time of year kind of determines which direction the predominant wind blows. And I don't know if that's what's going on here. We're going to get through it, though. All right, you bet. Skull Creek Farm. Jesus Cristo has made a bunch of pens using cocobolo. Yeah, cocobolo is one of my favorite woods. I especially like it for kitchen knives because it's got that high natural oil content, and that lends itself well to a slightly adverse environment such as the kitchen. So that's probably my most used wood on kitchen knives. And right alongside that, of course, would be the desert ironwood. Alex Jones agrees on the stuffing. All right, man. We're on the same page. Oh, yeah. Excellent. Yeah, the gravy. The gravy goes, okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. The gravy goes on everything. I mean, okay, everything. I mean, the turkey, the stuffing, the mashed potatoes. You know what I'm saying? Micah Davenport, I think I've tried the cornbread. I don't know if I call it Southern because it came out of a box, right? But I have tried the cornbread dressing before, I think. I think I'm more partial to the not cornbread dressing, personally. Dagnar D says, what's your opinion on cactus juice for stabilizing wood for scales? So I've done a little bit of stabilizing as of the last couple of months, and cactus juice is the only thing I've used, and it seems to work fine. It seems to work great. I haven't used anything else, so I don't have anything to compare it to, so I don't know how helpful that really is, but I've had good results with it, so yeah, I'll continue to use it. Skull Creek Farm, Osage orange is beautiful wood to complement a blade. Yes, sir, I've used that on a number of occasions. I haven't used that in a while. I have not used some Osage orange in a while, but I have on multiple occasions in the past. I don't know. I just kind of, I don't know why. I just kind of quit using it, but I did a number of times. You know what? Hold on. I'm thinking of mesquite. I have used Osage orange a couple of times, but I was thinking of they call it Texas ironwood. It's actually mesquite, and I used to use quite a bit of that. But I have used Osage orange a couple of times. It's very distinctive stuff. Pretty cool. Jeff Rose, how's it going? I'm burning a little bit of pecan, depending on where in the Sun Belt / Southern sort of not hemisphere, depending on where you're from. I call it pecan, but I know if I go further east and south, it's pecan. Anyway, that's what I'm burning. It's blowing smoke right in my face here, so I guess that's the nice thing about being on the other end here is y'all don't get the smoke. You just get to watch the flames. That never gets old for me though. But my nose is getting stuffed up from the smoke blowing in my face. Vice City 95. It says, hey, how's it going? Been a while since I've caught stream. My first craft sale the other day. Right on, man. Get out there and show people some stuff, man, and do some transactions. Right on. Yeah, man. Jeff Rose walnut's great too. I used to use more of it than I do currently, just because I don't really know why. I mean, I've got a bunch of it that I need to slice up into scales and stuff, but I'm going to probably be stabilizing it. I guess because I've gravitated towards the real dense woods like ironwood and cocobolo and even Bacote. There's others, but, bloodwood, that's super dense. So I've kind of gravitated towards the real dense hardwoods and specifically ironwood. And so I don't use a lot of like the walnut. But now that I do have a vacuum pot and I've got some walnut from a tree that I cut down 3 years ago, I am fixing to stabilize it and start using some more here and there. But Benjamin Brewer, what's going on? Jacob, Blaine, what's up? Micah, pecan. Yeah, that's pretty much how I say it here, because I ain't from here, so I just try to say stuff right. But it's pretty good though. Still working on my bowl of white boy chili. I don't pretend that it's authentic, but it's tasty. Ridge Runner Blades, how is Texas? Well, I'm out here enjoying the campfire a little bit and bringing y'all along, so y'all get to enjoy the campfire without the smoke. I don't know if you heard my rooster in the background there. Yeah, not too bad. Anyway, can make chili. I suppose I just make a pot of beans from scratch and been putting some diced up brisket in there and some peppers and this and that. I don't know. I think I'm missing the proper quantity of chili peppers. I put some jalapenos in there, but I mean that's not really the same flavor. It's good. It's just not It's just not quite the same flavor, you know what I'm saying? But, I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm not seeing Rocco. I don't have any mods on here, man. Terrible. I don't see Rocco on here doing dumb stuff. I don't like this, man. I can't see. Now I'm back to top messages, back to all messages. I don't know. It's goofy, man. Who wants to be a mod? Who's trustworthy and upstanding? Jesus Cristo has volunteered to be a mod. Smokes in my face again. You know, that could put a damper on reading the comments here. That's all I'm saying. Let me just try to see through my tears. No, I'm serious though, that smoke, that'll okay, I will add you as a moderator. There. Now you can kick out retarded people. Jacob Blaine, what is your recommendation for a knife sharpener for the beginner that is very rough on knives day to day? Picked up an electric sharpener and I feel I'm messing up the profile, but getting a good edge. Thanks, Cliff. Appreciate it. BF, Elijah, you need help? Yes, I need all kinds of help. But I need to answer this question about a knife sharpener first. Well, you know, here's the deal. I'm glad you brought up knife sharpeners because I could... I don't want to belabor the point, but let's talk about knife sharpeners for just a minute here. So we live in a culture where faster is always better, right? But is it? I don't agree. And honestly, I feel as a professional bladesmith where I hand build, hand forge, whatever the case may be, knives, that's not a quick process compared to, having them processed through a manufacturing facility, right? But I think it's demonstrable that the end result is, in general, better. And so, where am I going with this? Let's talk about sharpening. You can throw it on one of those electric-powered sharpeners and take off some material and get it to an edge. But is that... Well, first of all, what are you losing in that process? You might be getting a quick edge, but what are you losing in that process? Well, first of all, you're losing more material than you probably need to be taken off of your knife. And if it's just a cheap, throwaway knife, then I get it, whatever. It's not that big of a deal. But if you're into high-quality, high-end knives, then you want to take care of that tool. You want to take care of that piece and preserve it and make it work for you as long as possible. And so using a speedy system probably isn't the best alternative or the best route that you want to take. And so to bring this all around to my point, I prefer a traditional style sharpening system where you use either a traditional abrasive stone, whether it's an Arkansas stone or like a Norton stone, which are a manufactured abrasive. They're not a natural stone, but they're same idea. Or even what I've been using lately is a diamond plate. It's not a stone. It's a plate of steel that's been impregnated with diamond grit, and it works very well. And so you're applying the edge of your knife to that stone to remove as minimal amount of material as you need to restore that edge. And that's what I prefer to do. But even before that, I actually maintain my edges with a strop. And so you're taking off very, very little material and maintaining a razor sharp edge on that knife until you need to remove a little bit to very slightly reprofile that edge. And this all depends on how much use and what kind of use you're putting your knife through. But that's my preferred method. I do not own an electric knife sharpener of any kind. Obviously I've got the belt grinders that I'm building knives on, and so that's what I use to put the initial first ever bevel onto the knife blade, but then I go take it and I finish it up on a stone, and that's how I do it, and that's how I prefer to do it. So, long answer to your question, but hopefully that helped. So that's my thoughts and feelings and opinion on it. And that's how I like to do it. And I just, this is kind of my beef with the culture in general, is nobody wants to take the time to learn a skill anymore that takes discipline and patience and stuff. It's like, and I'm generalizing, probably most of you guys on here understand that and are not the people that I'm talking about. But that's kind of the trend of our culture, is like, nobody wants to cook food anymore. They want to throw something in a microwave and have dinner in 5 minutes, that kind of thing. It's just, and personally, wherever I can, I like to hang on to those things that keep us grounded with real world skills and just connection to reality. I don't know. What do you guys think about that? Wet stones or oil stones? So most stones are either, unless you start using oil on them, and then they are forever an oil stone. Because once you introduce oil to a stone, whether it's like a Norton, manufactured stone, or even a natural Japanese water stone, well, those are only for water. But once you put oil on a stone, it's going to be hydrophobic to whatever degree, and it's not going to work very well with water from that point. I have a I have a 3-stone Norton system that it's got that oil bath in the bottom. So as you rotate it, you can bathe the stone in oil and then bring it up to use it, and that works pretty good. I've been using that. I used that for quite a while. I've been using that work sharp diamond stone or plate or whatever for a while now. The nice thing about those, and the drawback to your natural stones, is that the natural stones require resurfacing because they do end up getting dished out, and so you have to go back and resurface that natural stone. Otherwise, you're going to be working with kind of a cupped out stone. That's kind of a pain. The diamond plates don't do that, so it's kind of nice. Jacob Lane asks, what about for a more complicated edge like a black feather gar? I don't know what that is. Has a crescent near the handle. It has the same edge profile. I'm not sure what you're talking about, but if you're talking about something like a recurve type edge, you're probably going to want to go with some kind of a rod, or like whether it's diamond, probably going to be like a diamond type deal that'll allow you to get into that recurve. And other than that, I don't really have a good recommendation, but that's what I would do. So Micah mentions the Easy Lap. I literally just bought an Easy Lap diamond knife sharpener, and I've known about them forever, like 25 years ago, but I've never actually owned one. And they're only $25, and they're made in America. Got a nice brass knurled housing, you know, and they're supposed to be 600 grit, but I got it, and it's a heavy 600 grit. It probably needs a little bit of break-in before it kind of calms down a little bit. But I was kind of messing around with it, and it's way too coarse. I mean, honestly, it's way too coarse for touch-up and maintenance for my knives. That's just the reality. If you're out, you know, if you ding up your blade and you really need to get the edge back, then it would probably be nice. But I was looking, and I really wish the Easy Lap would make like 1,000 grit version or something, but I don't see any of that, so that's too bad. So I ordered another diamond sharpener rod. It's called a Save Edge, and I think it's finer, so we'll see how that works. But BF says, this is my first live stream to appear in. I tried to help your channel, and I was one of the people asking you to do live streams because I wanted your channel to grow. Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. I appreciate your support. Mucho appreciation. So I'm switching back and forth between top messages and all messages because neither one seems to provide all of the messages. What's up, YouTube? I don't know. But anyway, hope you guys are enjoying the Campfire live stream here. I know I am. You just can't beat the campfire, man. See if I can adjust this a little bit here. Get the full feather of the flame in the frame here. That was almost poetic. You're welcome, Jacob. Let's see here. Back over. Micah says, I inherited mine from my grandfather. He used them to sharpen planer blades in his cabinet/guitar shop. Mine is well used, so it's pretty fine at this point. Yeah, I bet it would be about perfect now with it getting moored in like that. Yeah, and I'm sure that's probably that's really kind of the issue with my brand new one here. Yeah, you're welcome, Jacob. Cliff brought, I live in Alaska, so being able to use blades that I can rely on is crucial. Absolutely. I enjoy being able to say that I have knives from Alaska to Australia, and that is not an exaggeration. I get pictures from guys up there on their moose hunts and goat hunts and whatever else. I love it when guys are out there in the bush using my knives, processing their big game. That's why I do this. They're made to be used. Yes, sir. Einstein V2, Mr. Yukon's brother. Hey, hey now. Jeff Rose, my first diamond stone was Easy Lap 2x6 stone. I've had it over 30 years. Still works great. 600 grit, but it's more like 1,000 now after a lot of use. Yeah, I think those diamond stones, they really kind of come into their own after you break them in a little bit. That work sharp that I got, it's still going strong. Yeah, the only thing, and I did a video on it. I mean, you guys can find it and stuff, but on the channel. But the only thing that I see with it now is that you do. So I don't use oil on it, and you don't need to, right? But I do find that I have to wipe off the residue, the tiny particles of steel that are getting abraded off of the knife. I have to wipe that off of the stone to maintain the cutting ability of the stone, and that's the only thing. But yeah. But anyway, yeah, Einstein, what's up, man? I don't know. Is Yukon streaming this evening? I didn't. He usually streams a little later. My bro. Vice City, I've hunted lots of moose. It's a great time. I've never had the opportunity to hunt moose. I've seen plenty of them, but BF, I appreciate it. Let's see here. Cliff has killed everything in Alaska except muskox. Right on. He's not streaming right. He'll probably stream later if he does tonight, but getting started on your beer drinking. My chili's getting cold. Vice asked, do you drink beer since you cut out wheat? Well, actually, yes. I just don't drink beer with wheat in it. So I enjoy a brew a little bit, you know. And I actually like some hams, you know. And they use barley for that. But, you know. Keith says, love your knives. Got my Alaska moose hunter, even though we don't have moose in Louisiana. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, you know, it's, so the Alaska moose hunter, if you haven't heard the story, obviously it's, very serviceable for a wide variety of big game and or general camp chores, or whatever you want to use it for. But I made the moose hunter. I don't know. It's been at least a year ago, but I had a guy from Alaska ask me if I could make the moose hunter with a guard, and so you know, therein was born the Alaskan moose hunter. And if you go to my website, on the client photos, you can see that guy in there with his moose and his Alaskan moose hunter. So that's kind of cool. Jacob says, anyone idea when you will have more wilderness survival bowie camp knives with black micarta? Looking for a good all-around bushcraft knife instead of a Skinner type. Yeah, I need to make more of those. I just sold the last one, like, was it this week or last week? Yeah, I'll have some more here before too long. Just kind of keep an eye on the website, I guess. Micah says, Keith, I want one of the Alaska moose hunters so bad. We don't have moose in Alabama either. That's all right. Y'all got some hogs down there, right? That'll work. Outback Lad says, love a good campfire. A bit hot here in Australia at the moment for one. Hope your cooler weather is not cold yet. Yeah, it's getting well, okay, so I think it was this morning or a couple mornings ago, got out in the morning, I don't know, 7 a.m. ish, and it was crisp. And it was the first time in a while where I could remember it being crisp in the morning, and it was nice. But, still getting up to 70 plus degrees during the day, so that's how it is here. But it's cooling down. It's cooling down. BF says, to me, you have created such great content over the years, from when you were on Forged in Fire, then moved from the Pacific Northwest to Texas. Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, it's been a few years since what was it? Yeah, well, we're in our 5th year here in Texas, and I think it's been like 7 years or something since I've been doing the YouTube. But I appreciate it. Cliff, minus 15 here. Yeah, it would be. It would be. That's what happens up there. I don't know. It still hasn't really... It's not going to cool down here for real until end of December. That's just the way it is here. But I do feel like it stayed hot too long this year. It was rough. Not gonna lie. Because your inner clock or whatever, right around, I don't know, end of September, beginning of October, you're like, all right, fall's supposed to be here, and it's still 95 degrees outside. It's just messes with your brain. For me, anyway. Dagnardy says, how do you stay motivated? I was restricted from working in my forge because of a neck nerve injury. Got released early September, but I can't find the drive to get up every day and swing my hammer. Well, I mean, at the end of the day, my motivation really comes down to the fact that this is how I provide for my family. And so if I don't get my butt out there and make knives and whatever else, then I can't pay the bills, and my family's going to be in a bind. So, that's, at the end of the day, that's what it comes down to. So, I guess there's no better motivation than that. But it's not. It doesn't get to that point, obviously. Well, I don't know. Maybe sometimes it does. It's like, yeah, I got to do this. But, it's something I really enjoy. And yeah, here's the thing. If you ever want to ruin a hobby, turn it into your job, because work is work. I don't care what you're doing. Obviously, yes, I'm super blessed and happy to be able to do this for a living. But, man, there's, plenty of days where you're like, man, I don't feel like doing this, but you got to do it. You just work through it. It's just the way it is, like anything else. And then you have the high points where you're like, man, I really like this knife I made, or this was a fun project, or this was a cool video I was able to do, or whatever. And, you take those moments and kind of try to ride the wave a little bit. But that's just the way it is, So, Cliff was raised in Texas. Yeah, we are on the extreme western edge of the lower panhandle. So up on the Llano Estacado, which is the high plains, basically. So we're at like 3,600 feet here, and I'm sure you're familiar with this, Cliff. But, some people would say we're barely in Texas, which I guess would be fair. All that to say is that it does eventually get cold here. About February, it's going to be pain in the butt cold. But it doesn't last very long, so, that's all right. Cliff, I've made some little ulu knives in the past. They're more of like an herb chopper, to be honest. And I've been thinking about making some more authentic ulus. I just haven't gotten around to it because I got all kinds of other stuff that I need to make, but maybe one of these days. Micah says, look at most likely get Alaska Moose Hunter as a Christmas gift to myself. Those are the best kind, right? But he's got to get a hatchet first. Alrighty then. Outback lad. So where are you enjoying this campfire? Out in the bush somewhere, or maybe the backyard? Yeah, I'm in the backyard. I don't have a place to get out in the bush that's less than 3 hours away, which is sad, but that's the way it is. At least I can just kind of sit out here and enjoy this a little bit. So that's nice. Tenzine, appreciate it. Cliff was raised in Big Spring. I know where that's at. And Big Spring is down off of the Cap Rock, I believe. So, but that's, yeah. People in the South. Yeah, if you want to get cold, don't go to the South, right? Like I said, we're in a weird spot in Texas because it's called the Cap Rock or the Staked Plains, and it's interesting history because there's two different theories about why it's called the Staked Plains. The first one is that when the Spaniards came in the 1500s-ish and explored really very vast areas in North America here, down the southern portion, and claimed it for the Spanish crown. The legend or history goes is that the Spanish explorers used stakes to plot their course so they could find their way back, because it was just like a flat, open sands landmark. Like there was nothing. Like you couldn't plot your course based on any mountains or anything like that. And so they used stakes, every like whatever 100 yards or whatever, so they could find their way back. And they named it the Staked Plains off of that. And then the other theory is that the Staked Plains is somehow connected to a native word for the plains, because obviously there was, Native Americans living here at the time. So I don't know which one is true, but yeah, it's a big, enormous plateau, basically, high plains. Is where we are at, and so therefore we do get some pretty cold weather. Vice City, some people cook steaks out there that were really good. Yep, there's some good cooking out here. I have this joke that all there is to do here is eat and go to church. Hellback says, when you come over to pay me a visit in Australia, sometime we'll have a campfire in my backyard. Got over 7,000 acres for you to pick out a nice spot to have one. Right on, man. I'd like to visit Australia. Closest I've been, haven't been, I guess that's down in the Pacific, right? So I haven't been close to that. Have been on the other side of the world, but not Australia. Cliff says, that's why I moved to Alaska 25 years ago. 25 years ago. I get it, man. It's expensive. Einstein. They do have some big deer there because they all eat corn. But what's the saying? Iowa bred, corn fed. You gotta be careful with the food down here. You know, I mean, depends on which food. Like if you're gonna go get some fried chicken or whatever, you can get in the danger zone with that. Come on now. That is a nice campfire for a backyard. Yeah, Micah, so I think the lowest temperatures we get that I've experienced since being here, it'll get down in the, it's gotten down in the mid-20s. Because here's the thing, that's what's weird about, that's what's weird about the Great Plains, is that well, I say we're on the very edge. We're in this weird spot between, like, I don't know, we're on the very edge. And so the Great Plains get their weather in the winter right out of the Arctic, you know, coming down off the plains out of Canada. And then in the summer, they get them out of the Gulf. And so the extremes between, as I understand it, the extremes between the different weather is pretty crazy. So we're right on the edge of that. And therefore, once the weather patterns eventually do change later in the year, we do get some of that pretty cold stuff coming down out of the plains, because we're right on the edge of that. Keith, I am burning some pecan wood. Nice old pecan. Coldest I've seen here, Vice City. Where are you at? Are you up in Alaska, or where? Did I miss that? Negative 53 or negative 63. Yeah, that's about as cold as it gets anywhere on the planet, right? That's nuts. Keith, yeah, I like pecan wood to burn. I obviously never burned any until I came down here. You know, before that, my favorite, well, I guess still my favorite would be red fir. But I usually have a lot of hickory scraps and stuff from when I'm building the axe handles and stuff. But I had to trim a bunch of stuff off of my some of my pecan trees, and so I got a bunch of this. It's pretty nice. Yeah, I don't have a smoker or anything, so I'm just enjoying the campfire. Northwest Territories. Well, that'll freeze you pretty good. Yes, sir. Well, my chili is completely cold now. I wonder if I should put it on the next to the fire and warm it up. Ironbark or Gidgee timber? Naturally, I'm not familiar with either of those, but since those are Aussie woods, I'm assuming they probably are trying to kill you before you put them in the fire. I think that's pretty much par for the course, right? I don't know. Never gets old though. Campfire. What is it about? What is it about a campfire? Just draws you in, man. I wonder if I could put on a filter to this picture here. Let's see how that looks. I don't know. Caveman TV. Lowest temps I can remember on here, 8 or 10 degrees. Yeah. Yeah, certain parts of the country, it's kind of really incumbent on whatever the bigger weather patterns coming out of the plains or up out of the Gulf. I don't know. We're pretty the nicest thing about where we're at is we don't have the humidity this year, man, I don't know, something was weird because this year we had more humidity this spring and summer. I don't know why, but typically we don't get hardly any of the humidity. Once you go east from here and drop off of the Cap Rock, you get into the humidity and typical Texas weather, which I am not a fan of. Like, don't get me wrong, it gets hot here, but most of the time we don't have the humidity, and that makes a huge difference to me. So Pure Alaska's on the line. How's it going, Alaska? BF says it drives the spirit. Yeah, isn't that interesting? You know how the Spirit of God descended upon the people as the flames of fire? I mean, it could have been anything, right? Tongues of fire, though, right? Pretty interesting. Talkeetna, Alaska. I'm familiar with where Talkeetna is, sort of. Outback lad, I was just joking though, because they always say how everything in Australia is trying to kill you. But you're right, I bet they'd be pretty dense, pretty good knife handles. Keith says, thanks for the hat you included in one of my previous orders. You bet. Yeah, I appreciate you guys buying knives, and so, it's not a set deal, but if, somebody's buying some knives and got that, it's kind of a general amount, I'm like, man, I got to give them a hat or something, so I try to do that when I can and stuff, so I appreciate it. I appreciate it because I get to pay my bills and feed my family. Yes, sir. Yeah, I think I just sent you a package, if that's right. Two feet of snow. Yeah, it's about 7 degrees here today. So we might get some snow end of January, maybe. We didn't get any last year. But was it 2020? Yeah, I think it was 2020. We got a foot of snow. Didn't last very long. Didn't last very long, of course. You just kind of like sit it out for a day or two, and then it's all gone. Don't have to go anywhere. Yeah, Narlands. I don't. Heat plus humidity is not my cup of tea. Einstein, yeah, beans. Yeah, that's kind of the base. Pinto beans. And I shared my recipe earlier, but just real briefly, probably 5-6 cups of beans, double the level of water, 1/8 cup of salt, and then let that soak overnight. And then starting the next mid-morning, I'll start simmering them. And it takes about all day to do it, to cook them. And then I'll add some cubed up brisket for the last several hours of cooking, and then the last hour or so I'll add my onions and peppers, and whatever else. So that's how I do it. That's how I've been doing it. I'm not saying it's authentic, but they're tasty. So, and then of course, right off the get-go, I'll put in some seasoning like black pepper, plenty of paprika, a little bit of cayenne, a little bit of oregano, plenty of garlic powder. I don't know. I think that's about it. And then I'll usually end up adding more of all of those later. You just don't want to overdo it. All of this is just, by eye. I don't have a recipe. It's just kind of by feel, which is kind of how I usually do things, I guess. Not saying it's the right way, just saying it's how I do it. So, Yep. Ibrahim, today's topic is pretty much whatever you want to talk about. Pretty much open for input. Yeah, but no, it is tasty. I do enjoy it. It doesn't have the it's not a chili based. It's more like a beef and bean stew. I don't know. I mean, I put in 5 or 6 jalapenos and a couple bell peppers, plenty of onion, but it doesn't have that chili taste to it. It's good though. We got all these Alaskans conversating amongst themselves. Hey, don't think I haven't thought about it, okay? Well, more importantly, me and my wife, we've talked about it. I'm sure y'all can appreciate that. But I don't know, man. You just look at the cost and the expense of living, and I don't know, man. And the other thing too is I do like sunshine, but it's a different culture, it's a different world, and just like the self-sufficiency lifestyle that a lot of Alaskans live is kind of similar to what we did in Idaho. I mean, honestly, being down here in Texas, like up in Idaho, you went out, cut wood to keep the house warm for the winter, and that's something I did for years and years, and I enjoyed it. Down here, I work to make money to pay the bill for the dead dinosaur gas. That's what heats the house, and so it's just a little bit different. And I don't know, it's just different. But Vice City grew his own jalapenos. Nice. I grew some peppers like 3 or 4 years ago. And that's the other thing is down here, I just haven't really done much gardening because you got to water the heck out of everything. And I'm not used to that. So I just haven't taken the time to really try to make that work. Candace, how's it going? One of my sisses there. Fancy meeting you here. Fancy seeing you on here. Outback lad, there's plenty of poisonous snakes in my backyard. Nearly stood on a munga brown snake only yesterday. Well, I would expect nothing less, Outback lad. I mean, I'm sure you're aware, but to us gringos up here, the perception of Aussies is that they sort of shrug at life-threatening circumstances every other day, because that's just how it is down in Australia. Cliff, I make custom tackle and guided for years till I broke my back in 2 places. Well, that's a bummer. I don't know. I sort of expect people must be able to make some decent money or be extremely good at living off the land if they're up in Alaska. That's sort of my take on it with my surface level research on this topic. Einstein, welcome to Fire Creek. Are you a member, Einstein? You must be. What's going on here? That's awful fancy. Cliff says yes. I don't know if he's saying yes to me. Oh, Einstein's a member now. Awesome. Well, thank you, sir. I appreciate that very muchly. Cliff says hunting and fishing is life. Yes. Candace says, I was only in Alaska 2 days, then I had to go home. Well, it's a shame you couldn't stay longer. Yeah, that's been my perception is that, you look at the cost of groceries up there, like how in the heck would you live if you just went out and bought food? I don't know how anybody could do that. Even on a good income. Pure Alaska, thank you, sir. Oh my gosh, how nice was that? Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Very nice. Cliff says, too many tourists, LOL. Well, yeah, and I guess that depends on where you're at, too. But that probably drives a fair amount of the economy, too. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people that enjoy the idea of Alaska that wouldn't really want to commit to it. Like me. I don't know. I've envisioned it a couple of times, dragging my power hammer up there, up the Alcan Highway. Not that it couldn't be done, but, And hey, you know what? Life ain't over yet, so you never know. Run gun. Pure Alaska sounds like a good name for whiskey. Yeah. Probably. What would another one? Yukon Crystal? No, Yukon Drought. No, I don't know. I was thinking of the neighboring the neighboring province, right? Yukon drought. I think it should be a thing. People camp and fish on my land. I don't mind except the trash they leave. Yeah, that is just retarded. I've never understood that. Driving down the road, hey man, there's the world. It's my trash can. I don't get it. I do not get it. What? Yeah, I don't really have anything to say to that other than how dumb, how retarded can you be? You expect, and it's, yeah. I'm just kind of, I'm a loss for words because that kind of thing has always just made me think how utterly entitled, how utterly, what a cretin. What a cretin does it take to just throw your garbage out of the window or wherever you're camping and leave? That's all I can say. I have nothing to, I can't even string together a coherent sentence because I'm so disgusted by that. BF, I'm originally from Idaho, the Pacific Northwest. Yes, sir. I'm saying people leaving trash, ruining for all of it. Yeah, exactly. Bobby Dactyl, you ever run into a skinwalker? Not that I'm aware of. I mean, there's demons here and there, but I haven't seen any that I'm aware of, so, Keith, do you have any new knife designs on the horizon? What is your favorite knife that you made? That's a good question. I'm enjoying the Norwegianish knives that I've been kind of working on lately. I forged and finished grinding a couple today, actually. I mean, I forged them earlier this week, but they're ready for handles and they're just nice little knives. New designs on the horizon. Not really, not that I know of. But you never know when an idea is gonna just kind of hit, and then you're gonna go make it. So, I can't say that it's not gonna happen in the near future because it probably will. Pure Alaska, have to go split some wood as always. That's a continuous thing, ain't it? Have a good night. Yes, you too. Have a good night up there in the great last frontier. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out here. Because they don't have a girlfriend. What? A GF? Is that a girlfriend? I don't know. I'm trying to string that together here. Where does that come from? I don't know. Moving on. My kids were baptized in this creek and douchebags leave garbage there. Yep, that's a bummer. That is a bummer. Like I said, I don't understand it. Like, how lazy and entitled do you have to be to just, like, what do they think is going to happen? Do you think that beer can is going to decompose? No, it's just going to sit there. What do they expect? Somebody to come by and pick it up for them? I don't get it. I just don't get it. Don't get me started. Don't get me started. It's just, in some ways, that whole situation is like indicative of many of the problems with our society. Oh, I have a great story. I have a wonderful story. Y'all ready for a story? 21 of you here in the old live stream. Back in the day, I'm going to tell it anyway. Hold on a second. Went over public shooting range in the National Forest the other day, and the amount of garbage left around was absolutely ridiculous. I know. Key says make a Bigfoot knife. So I don't know if you've seen on the channel, I made a knife that I call the Sasquatch. because it seemed like if a knife if a knife was a Sasquatch, that's what it would look like. And so if you go to my shorts, videos and scroll back, you can see it on there, and it's called the Sasquatch. And I've made one. I have somebody who did a custom order for another one, but it's just like you just have to see it. You'll see what it looks like. So funny you should say that. I call that knife the Sasquatch. But anyway, Bobby Dactyl says, which demons? Well, I don't know. There's all kinds of demons out there, you know what I'm saying? Not too worried about it, but Jeff Rose, yay, story time. Love a good story. Story, please. He says, let's check it out. Can you make another? Yeah, I can make another. Like I said, I've got one on order, custom order. A guy wanted the same knife. So if you want a Sasquatch Skinner, that's what it is, Sasquatch Skinner, then yes, we can do that. But anyway, it's not a super long story. But back when I was in law enforcement, pushing the old black and white, as they say, there was this, and I can't remember the address now, but it was this this big old house back in the 100 years ago would have been like a mansion, right? But it was a bunch of apartments at this stage, and it was pretty much a dump, kind of a just like if you wanted to rent a place to live or rent a room or whatever, or a little apartment in this big old house, it was about as cheap as you could possibly get in the whole town. And it was special. Anyway, it was one of those places that you frequently responded to calls to, because the type of people that were living there, had some issues, and tended towards the less than stellar side of the law and so forth and so on. Well, anyway, at one point it caught on fire, and rather suspiciously, and it wanted to burn down, and the fire department came and put it out before it was fully engulfed, which I don't think was the plan, based on, this is all conjecture, but one could surmise that it might have been worth more up in smoke than it was, in one piece. But that's just a, conjecture. Anyway, after all this happened and the fire had been put out and the structure was still mostly standing, possibly much to the chagrin of various people, one of the tenants who rented a room or a little apartment in this building was had suffered some damage from the fire, and they were saying something along the lines of, they better replace all my clothes, they better pay for all my stuff. And in the moment, I was thinking, who is they? Who are they? And what was interesting, I don't think this gal knew who they was, but she was just intent on somebody picking up the pieces and somebody taking care of the problem, because it sure as heck wasn't going to be her. Like, it wasn't going to be her that had to figure out what was going on or how she was going to have to deal with the situation. And so it's not a very good story, but the point is that in the moment I was like, who is they? Who is this all-empowered sort of ethereal they? But it was a real entity to this person, and they were going to replace all her stuff that had been damaged in the fire. And they were going to fix everything. And so I guess my point is that people throwing garbage out the window they're I guess they're counting on, well, they're going to come pick it up. Well, who's they? Who are these people? Who is this entity? Anyway, that's been a pet peeve of mine for years. Who is they? Who is this they that's going to come and magically step in and remedy the situation? Who is it? I don't know. I still don't know. BF says insurance. LOL. Possibly. I don't think she had any insurance on anything. It's just funny. Pure Alaska says, cheers, sir, on his, very generous and much appreciated super chat there. I'm switching back to between top messages and all messages because I can't tell if YouTube is actually showing me all messages. Yeah, but that, I don't know if you could necessarily, I mean, you couldn't really call it a crack house, per se. But it was an interesting little setup there, that's for sure. It was interesting. It was Flophouse. I think that's the word I was looking for there, Benjamin. Yeah. Thank you, sir. It's been a while since I've been in the old business there. I don't remember all the terminology quite right. That is a nice campfire, though. Yes. Flophouse. That is the correct term that I was trying to think of. Yes, sir. Keith, yeah, if you just shoot me an email on the website, on the contact form, and we can connect there, and then I will, I'll be able to create a custom order listing for the deposit, and then send it to you, and then put a deposit, and then get it on the books, and then when I get it done, we'll finish the transaction out, and you'll have a Sasquatch Skinner. So yeah, just shoot me an email on the contact form there on the website, so we can start that process. Yeah, my one of my local guys, yeah, Keith, appreciate it. Thank you, sir. One of my local guys, funny story, he had a, I don't know, it's kind of a Green River Skinner. He had this knife that he was sending to somebody, I guess his brother or whatever, and he's like, I kind of want a knife like this, and I'm like, I make you a knife like that, but have you thought about this here, and you thought about that there, and you notice how it feels when you hold it like this, and so forth and so on. And so I'm like, it doesn't really quite have the grip, and anyway, so we were kind of talking about this one knife, and it's like, yeah, no, that doesn't, it's not quite what it could be there. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll make you a knife, so I start forging this knife out, because I had to make him like this Green River Skinner type deal, and I get this profile forged out, and I send him a picture of it rough forged out. And whenever I rough forge stuff, it's always got a little bit of extra material and stuff, especially if I'm doing like these bigger bends and stuff like that on the blade. And he's like, yeah, I kind of like that, and he's like, yeah, why don't you just go and leave it like that? And so, this back and forth kind of deal, and long story short, we end up with this Sasquatch Skinner with this sort of this big, bold kind of Green River. I mean, it's kind of distinctive. Like I haven't really seen anything quite like it. But and he wanted a nice thick blade on it too. So I did that. Anyway, long story short, get this blade forged and ground out and everything like that, heat treated and everything. And I don't really remember where but I was thinking like if Sasquatch was a knife, it would look like this, and that's where I came up with the name. And so thus was born the Sasquatch Skinner. Anyway, that's how that came about. Micah, legend has it she's still going around claiming they better pay for my stuff. No doubt. I'm sure. But that's what I'm saying. It's like there's like this sector of the population out there. I don't know if it's generational or what it is. I don't think it's generational. I think there's people like that in every generation. But it's like, dude, nobody's going to pay for your stuff, man. Like, what are you going to do? What are you going to do about it? It's like that's, in a word, that's almost what's wrong with everything, It's like, what are you going to do about it? Cliff asks, what's your favorite steel to forge with? Yeah, so I have three main steels that I work with for the most part. And the first one, the main one, is 52-100 high carbon steel. And so that's my my main steel that I work with. So honestly, it really covers everything, but I use it for my outdoor blades, most of those, hunters, skinners, bushcraft, etc., etc. If I want to get into a real heavy use, like a chopper, big bowie chopper type knife, I'll use 80 CRV2. And then I've really enjoyed using 125 CR1 for most of my kitchen knives, just because of that higher carbon content. For a carbon steel, it's got that better abrasion resistance and edge retention for that application, real thin, slicey edge and that kind of thing. And so those are the three steels that I use, and out of the three, the steel that I use the most is 52-100. And honestly, with the appropriate heat treat, 52-100 could really cover everything. But I like to try to, really pick a steel, especially for the application, to get the most out of it. And so that's the reason for having three different steels ultimately. But 52-100 has been around for over 100 years. And it's known as a bearing steel, ball bearing steel. It's used in industrial ball bearings, and it's got about it's got 1% carbon and about 1.5% chromium in it. And so, with every heat treat is everything. So I don't want to belabor that point, but that steel composition of the 52-100. Provides a really good potential in a knife blade with the proper heat treat in the carbon steel range, in the carbon steel sector. So it's worked really well. I've got really good feedback on it, and it's been good. BF says, so the point to move from Idaho to Texas was a business move. Well, I mean, ultimately, moving down here, we've seen God's hand at work in our lives in this. And we did experience doors opening in this direction while doors closed in other directions. But just from humanly speaking, real estate has gotten so expensive in Idaho at that point in time what we were able to afford. We couldn't really afford what we, would really kind of want to have for our family. And so we sold our 2-bed, 1-bath house on a little tiny lot and purchased for the same price a 4-bed, 3-bath house on a nice big corner lot down here. And so just from a purely practical standpoint, pragmatic standpoint, we were able to get into a property that was much better suited for our family at that time. And it just, Texas had been something that had been on our mind for a while. And I just all kind of fell together. We're in a season here. I don't know how long we're going to be here. To be totally honest, I don't want to stay here forever. But we have seen fruit definitely being down here. And so, that's where we're at right now. So, it's what it is. Got a viewer from Brazil working on the old English language here. How's it going? Benjamin, Idaho's still too expensive for homes. It's still bad. It's still not good. I don't know if it's never going to go back to what it was, but man, in the last 4 or 5 years, it's amazing. And things have gone up a lot here too. From when we were, like I say, we're in our 5th year here, which is hard to believe, but things have gone up a lot here too. And yeah, I don't know. That's just the way it is, right? I just hope that thankfully, with Trump being president, we've already had a Trump presidency. I remember when we moved down here, August 2020. Gasoline was $1.30 a gallon, which was, down here gas is cheaper than it is up in the Pacific Northwest and other places. Just the Pacific West or whatever in general. But it was $1.30. And, within 6 months after the current administration got in, it skyrocketed up to, over $2 and whatever, just way, way high. But it was $1.30. Gas was $1.30 a gallon when we moved down here in August 2020. I can still remember standing at the pump there in Lubbock, Texas, which is in our region. That's the big city in our region. And gassing up at the Costco for $1.30 a gallon. And driving the old Expedition didn't feel like that big of a deal at that point, but paying almost $3 a gallon, that's a whole different story. And it's gone down a little bit now, but I think that's kind of artificial mostly. So we'll see what happens. Cliff says, have you ever eaten at the Hayloft? No, I don't. I'm not familiar with that. Is that in Lubbock? I'm assuming. Keith just sent you an email on your website for the Sasquatch Dinner. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Yeah, we'll get that. Get with you on that and get you old Sasquatch Skinner. It is a cool knife. Famous Steakhouse. Yeah, I have not eaten there. I might have to take my wife there on a date. That is a nice fire, though. BF says Texas barbecue or Kansas barbecue. Well, I'm not familiar with Kansas barbecue versus Texas barbecue. We've been to a couple different barbecue places here in Texas, obviously. And I don't know how they differ from Kansas. But whatever we've had here, it's been pretty good. There's a little I think it's a kind of a little chain. It's called Rudy's Barbecue or whatever. This is a pretty good place to take the family. But we've enjoyed that. There's a few others, a couple others we've been to. I just, yeah, I don't know. I mean, let's see. Rudy's has got. I mean, you can get the dry. Well, it's not, but it is kind of dry brisket or whatever. But then you can get the. I don't know. There's a difference. I don't like dry meat. It's got to be like succulent and juicy. Micah says Texas barbecue is overrated. Well, here's the thing. You can go to 3 different places in Texas and get 3 different, 3 different meals. So, as an outsider, I don't know what is actually accurate Texas barbecue. You know what I'm saying? So, I don't know. If it tastes good, it tastes good, right? Like, just because it's different, there's got to be something that says, oh, this is authentic barbecue. And of course, barbecue is a particular food, which is funny because, out west, barbecue more than often than not is talking about like the implement of cookery, and what you're really talking about is the grill, right? And so you have a barbecue, and it's funny because one of our old pastors, he's from California, and he moved out here, and he invited some people from the church over to barbecue, and he just cooked burgers and hot dogs, and they showed up and they're like, so where's the barbecue? He's like, well, so, like barbecue is a whole, it's an actual thing here, whereas it's been heavily diluted, out in the hinterlands. It's barbecue is not where you cook burgers and hot dogs on the grill, right? Barbecue is an actual food. But I don't know what is authentic Texas barbecue or not. Cliff says Texas barbecue must be cooked over mesquite. I don't know. BS says the way you say no. What's wrong with the way I say no? That's funny. Jeff Rose, I gotta get some sleep. It's almost midnight here in Ohio. Probably the same time here. Love your work. Love the fire in the chat. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Let's do this again soon. Good night. Yeah, have a good night. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been fun. I'm enjoying the fire, enjoying hanging out with y'all. Yes, sir. Have a good night. Benjamin says, having had barbecue in 13 states, all have good points as long as it's not dry. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's one place we go to, you can get the brisket or whatever, But then if you want to pay a little extra, you get the brisket that's not like dry. I'm like, well, why would you have the dry stuff? Like, who likes that? I guess if you go put a whole bunch of your own barbecue sauce on it, but why would you do that, man? Anyway, who knows? Southerners can tell. Well, that's the thing, man. So same thing with Mexican food. So we're right next to New Mexico, and it's one of the interesting things, you know, especially kind of as an outsider, I guess maybe, is like I said, we're barely in Texas, you know, honestly. And so, you know, we actually spent quite a bit of time across the border in New Mexico. But it's interesting to note the difference in culture and food, just every accent, literally. You know, just 30 miles west, you know, across the border. And so, like, you know, obviously you can find all kinds of Mexican food and stuff in Texas, but I would definitely say there's probably more Mexican food across the border in New Mexico than there is in Texas right here where we're at. Where we're at, you know, I guess if you go to a more populated area. But, and then like, you know, you have like Tex-Mex, which isn't real Mexican food. But if you want good Mexican food, you can find it around here. And so I guess my point is like if you go, well, up to Idaho, for example, or whatever, the chances of finding good Mexican food are significantly reduced. Yeah, so like this one place we go to, they offer the dry and then the succulent or whatever they call it, I don't remember. And it's like, well, I don't get it. Why? Who would sit down and be like, yeah, I like to chew on overdone meat that I have to try to work up a bunch of saliva just to get down my gullet? Who would do that? Nobody would do that, right? I don't know. So I'm like, why do they even offer it? You know, I don't know. Maybe people like to put on their own sauce. I don't know. Like I said, I'm just kind of an outsider. I don't really know barbecue. I mean, I know what I you know, I definitely enjoy it, you know, but I'm not schooled in the proper art of the barbecue or anything like that. The person who wants a well done steak. Okay, well now we're getting into shaky territory now. This is thin ice. BF says you're a Texan, man. What is it that makes me a Texan exactly? Not liking the dry brisket and whatever. I mean, I guess I'll take it. Yeah, a well done steak is kind of like ruining a decent meal, you know? I don't know. Living there, yeah. And what's honestly funny is last Friday. So one of the things I like to do is I like to grill chicken, cook chicken on the grill. In my opinion, that's the only way to do it, because if you bake it or whatever, it's dry. It's just not very good. That's that's how I grew up eating chicken, right? But you cook it on the grill, and unless you mess it up big time, it's delicious. Throw some seasoning on there, but you cook it on the grill and it keeps the juices in, and it's really good. I love it. The kids love it. And, something I'll do probably a couple of times a month, usually, well, maybe once a month, grill some chicken, some drumsticks and thighs or whatever, or even the chicken breasts and stuff, but it's just really good on the grill. And last Friday, I put, I got some chicken on the grill and everything like that, and it was all looking good and everything like that. Well, I got on the phone with somebody, and we got to talking, and I forgot about that chicken. And one of the kids comes in and is like, "Dad, what about the chicken on the grill?" And I'm like, "Oh no!" So I run out there, and at this point it had been on there for like an hour and a half. And grilling chicken takes a long time because you have to cook it real low. If you try to grill it at a high heat or a medium heat, even, it's going to burn it, or it's going to ruin it. It's going to burn the outside and the inside's not going to be cooked. And so you have to cook it on the lowest heat. And so it takes a long time. You can have it on there for an hour or whatever, and it's good to go. But this had been, at this point, gosh, I don't know, it'd probably been a couple hours. Anyway, so one of the kids come, "What about the chicken?" So I run out there and like, "Oh no!" I open the grill, and it was ruined. It was done. I was so disappointed with myself. I was so bummed because it's that was dinner, right? So, anyway, it was done. It was ruined, and so I pull out. It was just dry. It was like it was just crusty. It was bad. Anyway, not sure where I was going with that, but that's that. So anyway, so this Friday, so tonight, I redeemed myself. I grilled drumsticks, and I cooked up that pot of chili, and so dinner was actually good tonight. Yeah, last Friday was sad. Took me like 3 days to get over that. It was terrible. Yeah, but tonight I made sure I didn't ruin it tonight, so it was good. Fried chicken and grilled chicken. Yeah, fried and grilled. I agree. That's about the only way to do it. Cliff, yeah, expensive dog food. I didn't end up feeding it to the dogs because I didn't want to. Yeah, they probably could have crunched up the bones okay, but I didn't want to risk it. Yeah, I understand. I didn't order pizza though. We had something else. I don't remember what it was. Fire's dying down a little bit. Alright, so here's the crucial point, guys. Do I throw some more chunks of wood on the fire, some more pecan on the fire, or do I let it die down? Should we start wrapping this up? We're at 2 hours here. Should I start wrapping this up? Or should I throw another couple sticks on the fire? Let me know. Axiom says, "Good morning. Top of the morning to ya." What time is it? Cliff, you got something better to do. Oh, a little passive-aggressive there, aren't we? That's funny. Other than go to bed, I mean, not really. More cowbell. More fire. More fire! Okay, alright. Oh, Benjamin's got to go to work. Off with you, off to bed with you. Be gone. Good night. It's only 11 o'clock. I don't know what time it is. It's only 11 o'clock here. Central time it is. Okay, I'll throw another couple sticks on the fire here. I think the general consensus is continue with the combustion of organic material. There you go. It's 12 for us North Carolinas. Well, that's because you live on the eastern seaboard. That's what you get. I think this one right here is not cured. You probably can't see it, but most of the branches I trimmed off were dead, and some were mostly dead. But you know, mostly dead is partly alive, and so they weren't completely dried out. And I can just kind of tell by weight, you know, that it's not quite dried out all the way. Well, there's another one. But I threw a few on there for y'all. Good old mountain time. Cliff. Cliff with the old Pacific time. Indeed. Yes. Yes, we're right next to the old mountain time we are. So when we go to church, we gain an hour or something. It's always confusing. We never know. Okay, what time do we have to leave? We go. No, wait, hold on. It's no at minus no. I don't know. That's how it goes every time. We need to leave at this time to get there. No, wait. It's no, wait. Daylight savings. And it's very confusing. It's very confusing. But you know, some places like Arizona, they don't mess about with daylight savings because why would you? You know. So Arizona did something right. Having a stroke. I resemble that remark very muchly. Can't a guy cut up just a wee bit? Have a wee bit of fun. Well, we got a nice bit of coals there, and the old fire's catching back on. Like I say, it never gets old. Well, thanks, BF. I appreciate it. You have a good night and take care. We'll continue watching the fire here for a little while. Enjoying the old oxidation of this here organic material Doesn't sound quite as nice when you say it like that, but Caveman TV, I think somebody said earlier. Yeah, something about it. Well, guys, we need a topic. I think we need a topic. We've had some good topics. We need another one here. Keith asks, were you influenced by Tops knives? I believe they are made in Idaho. Yeah, I think they're out of Idaho Falls. I've owned one Tops knives. I saw their booth at the old Blade Show West here a couple months ago. They've got quite the lineup, you know. I think they use primarily 1090. Well, I don't know that. Back in the day, they used primarily 1095. I don't know if they're still doing that, but in a word, no. Well, I guess that's not quite explanatory enough. I would say that I was influenced on some things not to do by Tops knives, and primarily that would be the grind and or cutting clearance. So like I said, I've owned one Tops knives in the past, and I don't have it anymore. Funny story behind that. But my general perusal of Tops knives, and I'm not trying to knock them. They fill a thing, but that's not what I'm trying to make. From what I've seen, and granted it's been minimal, but from what I've seen, they make, fairly typical. They've got some cool designs and stuff, but their grinds are too thick, and they're, for the guys that are going to go out and baton with it and do the whatever and this and that, that's kind of what they're building knives for. Correct me if I'm wrong. Which is not what I'm doing. I build knives that I want them to cut very well and have excellent cutting clearance and do that job very well. And so, at the price point that I'm selling at, I would at least hope that my clients, and I think the vast majority of them are discerning knife users, and they know that when they buy a nice cutting tool, it's designed to cut stuff. It's not designed to go slam through a stump to try to make firewood out of, that's not what we're doing here. Not that you can't make a knife that does that, but if you do, it's not going to have very good cutting clearance. Enter the Tops knife that I used to have. Now, I don't know if they're all like that. I'm not trying to say that, but the one in particular that I had, it wasn't what I'm trying to make. So that was a very long-winded answer. And so in a way, yes, I have been influenced by them in the opposite direction. So hopefully that answers your question. Cliff asks, what's your opinion on cold steel blades? I have a couple cold steel blades, actually. I think I've owned probably 3 total, which isn't a lot. I have the SRT. Yeah, excuse me. And that is it's more like a pry bar, right? But it's supposed to be like a all-purpose, blade you can abuse. And then I have also one of their little Skinner/Hunters, and I can't remember the name of it. And it's a decent little blade. And so cold steel in general, for the money, I think they're pretty good. They have a pretty diverse lineup. And from what I've seen, like their big chopper, multi-use survival type knives are built as such, and then their smaller Skinner type blades, they're built for that. And so again, fairly minimal, but they seem to be pretty good. for what they are. So, yeah. You sure? Keith, I think you're talking about the tops knives. So yeah, back in the day, I think they were primarily just using 1095. But that's been 20 years ago. Honestly. Wow, has it been that? Yeah, it's been 20 years ago since I had that knife. Since I bought that knife. So I'm sure they've branched out into other steels, and they've got a lot more, different designs and stuff now. So, that was just my experience 20 years ago of tops knives. So maybe that's not even super helpful. So, but that's anyway. Axiom topic: what makes a good hot dog? Also, what are the condiments of choice? What's me? Well, hot dog. If I'm gonna build a hot dog, I kind of like to put. Well, you can either go one of two ways. You can go basic, ketchup and mustard. Well, let's back up. Let's start with the hot dog. If you're gonna eat a hot dog, we all know what a hot dog is, right? So you might as well get one that tastes good. So like a bratwurst, or even like a whatever. Like the nicer hot dogs you get from Costco or whatever, right? They, at least they taste a little better. They're not just the mealy, pasty, like whatever the heck that is out of your basic Oscar Mayer hot dog, right? So if you're gonna eat a hot dog, you go with something that's got a little more something to it. The Polish dog or the bratwurst, whatever, something like that. And then once you get that, that's kind of your basis. You can go two ways. You can go basic, ketchup and mustard, on a bun or whatever, if that's it. Or you can start adding some good stuff like sauteed onions. That's always good. Or, you got to have the relish. Start, doctoring it up a little bit and get some good stuff under. Anyway, that's the two different directions that I would go on a good hot dog. But as far as the cheap, Oscar Mayer or whatever hot dogs, like, yeah, that's not even worth it, man. I actually sliced up some of that and put them in some beans the other night for like the beanie weenie kind of thing. And it's like, man, these suck. They're hardly even worth it, man. That's all I'm saying. Well, Keith, I appreciate that. Like it's the true custom handmade knives. Yes, sir. After my spiel on hot dogs there. Cliff asked you, do many Damascus and San Mai? Yeah, I've done quite a bit. I just was working on a custom order kitchen set in some Damascus. Last week I forged up the Damascus, and this week I got the blades forged up and rough ground and heat treated. Working on a bunch of other stuff too. So next week I'll get them finished up. And then the San Mai, I've done a number of different versions of San Mai. And I've got some San Mai billets I need to turn into blades. So that'll be forthcoming eventually. But San Mai is nice because you can put that nice high carbon steel in the center, heat treat it for excellent edge retention, and then your cladding, provides that durability and toughness to the blade. So, yeah. Axiom, you don't want the kaya of hot dogs. I don't know what that means. Einstein, Axiom, it must be all beef. Mustard is a must, then either chili or sauerkraut. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah, all beef's good. That's good, you know. Just, I mean, a quality hot dog. It doesn't have to necessarily be all beef, in my opinion. You can go get some good pork or whatever too. But yeah, the cheap hot dogs, man. It's like, I mean, kids don't know the difference, right? They'll eat them. They don't care. But us mature folk, you know, it's like, dude, life is too short for this lousy hot dog. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Damascus functional art. Yes, I would say that's a pretty good description. There's nothing inherent to modern pattern welded / Damascus steel that makes it inherently better than a monosteel blade. You know, you're combining two high quality steels to create a pattern welded steel that it's layers of steel that you can implement a pattern into and into the finished product. But you know, in antiquity, there were, you know, every culture had a version. By almost every culture had a version of pattern welded steel where they would combine iron and or different grades of steel to accomplish a variety of characteristics within the same blade. You know, so like your Viking swords, for example, some of them would have a combination of low carbon or iron steel, you know, low carbon steel or iron combined with a higher carbon for the edge, that kind of thing. And so you get a blade that's tougher that still had the edge retention. That's essentially what you're going for. I mean, San Mai does the same thing. You've got that high carbon steel in the center and the core that provides you with that edge retention, and then the cladding on the outside provides you with that that toughness or ductility to the overall blade that the high carbon steel would not have by itself. And then on top of that, of course, you know, eons ago, steel was expensive and not necessarily readily available. And so you wanted to make a functional blade with as little steel, with as little high quality steel as possible, because it was hard to get and it was expensive. And so, you know, making 2/3 of the blade, making 2/3 of the blade out of either like wrought iron or iron, low carbon steel or whatever, saved you a significant amount of quality high carbon edge retaining steel. And so there's multiple reasons behind things like San Mai, or these different techniques, you know, that we kind of take for granted now. Like we don't really have to worry about, you know, wasting quality steel in the blade. Like we're not, you know, it's so inexpensive comparatively now, it's so readily available. You just make the whole blade out of the same steel, and it doesn't really matter. Like you're not, you know, it's like what, an extra $1 or $2, you know, whatever. It's not a big deal. But you know, 1,000 years ago, 500 years ago, it was a different story. So that's a little bit of that. Keith asked, were you ever on Forged in Fire? Yes, I was. I was on season 6, episode 8. General Yamashita's Gunto. Axiom asked, didn't the Japanese also mix metal when it came to katanas? Mixed metals, that is. So the original... Okay, so here's what's weird is... there wasn't just one way that the Japanese made katanas. And if you do some research on it, you'll find that there was various methods. But by and large, the material that the Japanese used to make the katanas was what's known as tamahagane. which is a steel made from iron sand out of a particular river, and I don't remember the name of the river. But they would take that and they would smelt it down in a basically a furnace. I'm gonna forget the proper terminology here now. It's not melting it; it's smelting, which is different. Anyway, process it down in this big old furnace and come out with tamahagane, and it's sort of a very coarse, unrefined chunk, porous chunk of steel of varying carbon content. And then they would take that and they would break it up into smaller pieces, and then they would combine it, forge weld it together, and begin to refine it down into a billet that could be either made into or incorporated into a katana, a sword, or whatever they were building, which is a very lengthy process and required a pretty extensive knowledge of the materials and what they were trying to accomplish. Really, essentially the overarching goal was to take an unrefined material of pretty wildly differing composition and incorporate it into a homogeneous material that they could make a reliable blade out of. And again, like I said, there's different ways of doing that, and very often they would for example, have processed down a piece of tamahagane into a high carbon billet, which they would then wrap around and forge weld to a low carbon core, which would comprise the spine or interior core of the sword, which would provide that ductility. And then they would have a high carbon layer on the outside that would comprise the edge and the entire outside surface, most of the outside surface of the sword. That's one very common way they would do it. And both of these would be tamahagane of very different carbon contents, and there are different ways they would work with that and either add or reduce the carbon content. Anyway, it's all very involved, but that's sort of a short answer to that question. It's kind of a long. I mean, that's a short answer, but yeah, it's very involved. Yeah. Anyway, Einstein V2 says, the steel blend available today seem to do what the welding techniques used to do. Yeah, basically, yeah, the steel production methods of 500 years ago, really up until just, I want to say like 200 years ago, were quite different than what we have available today, and up until the, I think like the Bessemer furnace. I'm not as up on this as I ought to be, perhaps, but the methods of processing steel to produce a high purity product are pretty new, actually, in the history. Very new, actually, in the history of the use of steel. And prior to that, it was much more expensive and laborious to produce a usable piece of steel, and like I said, a pure piece of steel. And so they would be able to make steel, but the product would typically be very subpar to what we're used to today. And so a lot of these different techniques, like the forge welding and layering and forge welding, like in the tamahagane and stuff, were designed to process that product into something that was homogeneous and useful for actually making a blade out of, instead of just a random chunk of whatever. So yeah, that's true. Excuse me. Christopher, how's it going? Micah, yeah, Walter Shoros, he's a Japanese blade guy. He's not Japanese, but he He makes Japanese blades, and yes, he's got a number of videos, and I think you can actually buy an instructional course on all that. But yeah, he makes mahogany and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. Thanks, Axiom. I appreciate it. Thanks for the super chat there. Yeah, that's just I enjoy studying this stuff, and that, like I said, that's a short answer. Kind of glossing over the surface, but I appreciate it. Keith asks, how did you learn to make knives? Well, about 25 years ago, I was well, as a preteen, as a kid, I really enjoyed the outdoors and what I call primitive wilderness living skills. So I would read like the Tom Brown books and the lots of other books like Wildwood Wisdom and Cache Lake Country was one of my favorite books. Numerous others, but I was really into the outdoors and just those skills and everything like that. And so using a knife in that context was, a knife was like the primary tool that you use for all those things. And so that, I really enjoyed knives and using knives in that context. And so that was kind of the precursor. So one day I was at the library and I found a book on how to make knives. And it was a book by a guy called David Bowie, Boye. And I was like, wow, you can make your own knife? Prior to that, I'd never conceived of the idea that you could make your own knife. And so, anyway, so I immediately checked the book out and brought it home. I didn't even finish reading the book before I jumped into my first knife making project. And I literally had nothing. I had nothing to make a knife out of other than a file and a hacksaw. I mean, that was it. I didn't even have a piece of steel. I literally found a piece of steel that was being used as a little yard sprinkler base at the house we lived in. With my parents were renting it in the little town we lived in, and so I yanked that piece of steel off of there and used a hacksaw to cut out a knife profile and a file to start forming the bevels on it and everything like that. And we were about to go visit my grandparents, which lived some hours away, like I don't know, probably 8 hours away or something like that. So anyway, we in the midst of this knife project, we ended up going to visit my grandparents. My granddad, he's always, he's slowed down a lot, in his later years. He's almost 90. But he always had a shop and he always had tools and, was always working on stuff. And so we went to visit my grandparents, and he helped me heat treat the blade. I think I brought the book with me, like, this is what I'm doing here, kind of showing him stuff. And he knew how to do some stuff, not knife making specifically, but a lot of different abilities and just general workmanship. And so he helped me heat treat the blade with the acetylene torch set up and quench it in probably motor oil or something like that. I don't remember. And then he had some wood that we used for the handle scales and put it all together. And so I ended up finishing this knife while we were up there visiting. And that was my first knife. And the steel was just mild steel. It wasn't even good knife steel. It wasn't anything you could even heat treat. But that was my first knife. And anyway, as they always say, the rest is history. But at that point I was hooked, and I've never really even used the first knife I've made because it wasn't even good steel. But at that point I was like, man, this is cool. So I don't remember what the next knife I made was. I don't remember that far back really, but in specific. But I know I made a lot of knives out of like saw blades, just some files. But in the early days, I didn't forge any. It was all stock removal and stuff. At the time, my dad was working at a sawmill, and he brought home some sawmill blades, and one of them was like a big circular saw. And I remember I made a bunch of knives out of that. I had some. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was my granddad, or maybe it was somebody else who cut out a bunch of blanks for me out of that. Just rough cut shapes, and then I would refine them on the grinder and grind the bevels and try to heat treat them and stuff. But that's what I did a lot in the first several years, and that's how I started making knives. So I could go on, but I don't want to drone on too long there. Cliff asked, have you ever used carbon steel and river quartz to start a fire instead of flint and steel? I think I've struck a spark with quartz before, but I don't think I've actually ever started a fire. I've started a fire with the flint and steel a few times. I've got some I think it's actually English flint. But yeah, there's a number of different stones you can use to strike a spark on a good steel. Christopher, looking back at your first knives, are you amazed knowing how much you didn't know when you were started and how far you've come? Yeah, for sure. You just like they say, you don't know what you don't know. And what's also funny too is like some things you kind of, for me, maybe it's just me, I don't know, you kind of intuitively know some stuff, but then you lose it, or you don't pay attention to it and you're trying to figure out some other things, and then that area kind of regresses a little bit and you kind of have to relearn it. I don't know, maybe that's too abstract. But yeah, no, I definitely look back and like, man, that was that was crude or just really but I mean that's how it works. Like, you got to start somewhere. Nobody starts out knowing how to do stuff really well. Now granted, you can have a faster learning curve than some people, and I honestly I did not. If I had, so back when I started, it was a lot less people doing it, and there was like the big names that are doing it now were starting back then, or a lot of them weren't even started yet. And the internet was still very minimal, really. Like I would go to the library and try to look up stuff, and there was just really nothing on the internet to speak of. I would check out different books, but the amount of resources that are available now compared to 25 years ago are just astronomically different. And so, we lived in a small town. I didn't really think about it either as like trying to find people to learn from. And so everything I learned was just through trial and error and or reading books, and that's kind of the way it was for a long time. So Einstein. I do still have my first knife, yeah. There's a lot of early knives that I don't have. Actually, even in those early years, I sold several of them. There was a guy who had like an antique store that I kind of made friends with, and he sold a few knives for me back in the day. So there's some super early knives of mine out there somewhere. Jesus Cristo. Have a good night. Christopher said, you work with metal, there's no such thing as abstract. Well, perhaps not. Micah says, I made my first knife out of a piece of concrete stake that I found at a job site. I was proud as hell about it back then. Hello, my dad brought it out the other day, and I was, man, that looks horrible. Yeah, well, that's the way it goes, Yeah, but you start where you can and you keep working on it. Cliff says, I've always loved blades, but Forge and Fire turned me on to you and Neil and several others. I appreciate it. Yeah, Forge and Fire definitely helped, expand interest and stuff in the bladesmithing art and knife making and stuff in general. Keith, so could your knife kill? What, the first one? It was pretty small, but I suppose it could have. Cliff, so have you ever had really bad accidents while forging? Not well forging specifically, but I've had some pretty gnarly accidents in knife making in general. Speaking of another story, it's been probably 6 or 7 years ago now. Probably 7. No. I guess 7 or 8 years ago. Good grief. Anyway, we were doing the farmers market up in Idaho there, and it had rained a little bit or something, and so I had blades out on the table, knives out on the table, and a couple of my knives had gotten some water spots on them. And I think this was after, I think it was after we got back from market, or maybe, no, I'm sorry. It was the evening before market, so it would have been a Friday afternoon. I would been, you're working all week and everything and trying to get ready for the market on Saturday morning. And the previous week, some of my knives had gotten some water spots on them from the rain. And so I was trying to get ready for market. And I was at the time, the finish I was doing on my knives was like a hand sanded finish, but then buffed out. It's it's not something I do anymore. It's kind of goofy, I guess. But anyway, so I was trying to clean these blades up and get these water spots off of them and get them ready for the market the next morning. And one of the blades they had was kind of a bowie knife. It was kind of an early style bowie knife, and it's like probably an 8-inch blade or something like that. Anyway, these were completed knives, and so I was just trying to clean up the finish on them. So they already had a complete edge on them and everything like that. They were sharp, everything like that. And there's definitely a moral to the story here. So I was buffing them out on the buffing wheel. And I was tired because I've been working all week and trying to get ready for market the next morning, and, not quite paying close enough attention. And so this big 8 or 9-inch blade knife, I was trying to clean up the finish on. Not quite paying attention, being a little bit careless. Buffing wheel catches the edge on this knife. And like I said, this knife is sharp. So it's not like it just kind of catches and bumps. It catches and the knife cuts into the buffing wheel like a full 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches, which I didn't know at the time because, the buffing wheel's spinning at, 1,500 RPM or whatever it is. All I know at the time is that something like grabbed the knife out of my hand and then something hit me in the face and hit me in the shoulder and then it's gone. And I'm like standing there kind of dazed trying to figure out what happened. What I didn't know in the immediate moment is that it also like sliced through my middle knuckle, like almost like real like to where you could see like tendon basically. And so I'm like kind of dazed a little bit, shut off the buffer and go like and kind of like not stumble but like just walk to the house, find my wife basically, like, hey, I just kind of hurt myself a little bit here. And yeah, I end up going to kind of tried to go to the emergency room. Kind of ended up going to, I don't remember exactly how, but we ended up going to like a small what's it called, quick care kind of a deal, which was kind of a blessing because they're a lot less expensive than the full-on emergency room. So the injuries that the injury on my left hand on my knuckle was very obvious. Like it sliced open my knuckle really bad, and they actually referred me to a hand surgeon, and it was the weekend, of course, and so they couldn't really. All they could do was kind of stitch it up, the cut, and wrap my hand up. And while I was there, we noticed that there was some blood on my shirt up by my shoulder, and they're like, "Oh, what's this?" And kind of, and like I said, at the time I didn't realize it hit me in the shoulder, but it like cut or stabbed me in the shoulder, like between my shoulder and my neck, so kind of in the meat of my shoulder, and so I got some staples in that, and it hit me in the face and busted my glasses up, and thank the Lord it didn't hit edge first. It just kind of hit with the flat of the blade on my face. Kind of gave me a couple of minor contusions on my face, and before it stabbed me in the shoulder and flew across the room. And so anyway, I got out of there with just stitches in my left hand, being advised to go to a hand surgeon, and then some staples in my shoulder. Long story short, I actually called the hand surgeon and tried to get in with them, but they were busy or something like that. I don't remember what happened exactly. They couldn't get me in. Ended up using some like comfrey salve on the knuckle, which is very healing. It really helps the tissue heal and everything like that. And long story short, like I got a little bit of a scar there, some scar tissue on the skin, but I have full function of my hand, and so thankfully it heal, and I use my hands all the time, so I think that probably helps too. Like if you just stop using something, it stoves up, But anyway, so it ended up healing up completely. But anyway, that's the worst injury I've received, and hopefully the last worst injury I'll receive. But the buffing wheel is super dangerous, particularly with sharp edges, as explained in the story. So yeah, buffing, you got to be super careful with the buffing wheels, and like, frankly, I use them on handles. I don't use them on the blades anymore, because I don't do that kind of finish anymore, and that's part of the reason, because I don't want the buff blades. I use the buffing wheel on the handles some, depending on the type of handle, but like on the wood handles and stuff, I'll use it on those fair amount. But it's just like that's always on my mind. Like I'm always like, okay, how am I holding this knife? Where's even though it's not sharp, I don't buff sharpen knives. Like maybe on the very rare occasional strop out an edge on the buffing wheel, but that's anyway. It's like super dialed in. Like, okay, where is everything at? Like, how am I holding this? Like, extra paying attention to holding on to this thing, because even if it kind of grabs it, as long as you have it in your hand still, it's not going to take it out of your hand. Anyway, just super paying attention, and that's what that experience did for me, because it's like, dude, that could have been so much worse, and so super blessed that I got out of it with just what I did. So, but anyway, that's my big worst injury story. Hopefully that's my only injury story. Christopher asks, what is your favorite type of wood for scales? I would have to say desert ironwood. That's got to be the one. That's the one that I use the most, and it's got to be my favorite. Axiom, I've been a paramedic for 5 years. I can tell you that if you work doing anything that is dangerous, you can feel yourself slipping beyond reckless. Put it up and do it later. Not worth it. Yep. Yeah, for sure. Cliff grows comfrey. Yeah, on our last house we had a bunch of comfrey actually growing. Didn't know what it was for a while actually, but figured that out later. Cliff asks, have you used carnauba wax to finish blades? I haven't. I've got some it's called Warrior Wax that a fella gave me. What's his name? I can't remember his name now, but he has American Warrior Forge, and he sells this Warrior Wax, and it's a food safe blade wax. And so I've tried that a little bit. I've used that on some like Damascus and stuff like that. But it has some carnauba in it. Thanks, Axiom. Talk to you later. Thank you for tuning in. Appreciate it. Well, thanks for hanging out, guys. I appreciate it. I figure I might better wrap it up here. It's about midnight here, so fire's dying down again here, and probably better let y'all go. Fling shot. Yeah, fire's got that universal draw to it. You wonder about that, don't you? I was, well, I mentioned it's a couple hours ago, I guess. In the Bible, when the Holy Spirit descended on people the day of Pentecost, it appeared as tongues of fire. So there's something about that, eh? Well, I appreciate it, Keith. And Christopher. Cliff. Thank you, sir. Einstein. Axiom. Whoever else is on here. I don't know if Mike is still on here, but appreciate it. Appreciate it, everybody. It's been fun. D's 1129. I've been watching your content for a long time, and your knowledge has really helped me along the way. I want to say thank you and God bless you for that. Thanks, sir. I appreciate that. All right. Well, y'all have a good night, and thank you for hanging out here at the campfire. It was fun. Hope y'all had a good time. We'll have to do it again here. Nothing like a good old campfire chat. So I'm gonna get off here, and you guys have a good weekend and a good night. So talk to y'all later. Appreciate it.